Tyson sat in the cramped confines of his small apartment, surrounded by stacks of textbooks in the eager anticipation of his first day as a medical student. The weight of his stethoscope hung on a hook by the door, a tangible reminder of the dreams he had harbored since childhood. The world outside his window, however, told a story of its own, one of decay and neglect. The dystopian landscape had painted its grim strokes across the city's canvas, leaving behind crumbling buildings and dimly lit streets. The remnants of prosperity were overshadowed by the ominous presence of rising costs, rendering even the most essential commodities a luxury that few could afford. As Tyson glanced out, he couldn't help but feel a pang of unease, wondering how his aspirations could find a foothold in a world gripped by such disparity. His excitement about starting medical school had been a beacon of light amidst the encroaching darkness. The prospect of making a difference, of becoming a healer, had fueled his determination to excel academically. But as he navigated through the labyrinthine corridors of his thoughts, the harsh reality gnawed at him. Housing, an essential component of any student's life, had become an elusive treasure. In the days leading up to the start of his program, Tyson had embarked on a disheartening journey. He scoured online listings and visited every potential rental, only to be met with astronomical figures that were galaxies beyond his meager budget. The dilapidated apartment he had inhabited had become his only sanctuary, a haven that he was reluctantly leaving behind due to its unbearable cost. With a resigned sigh, Tyson packed the last of his belongings into a few cardboard boxes. As he locked the door to his former apartment, he couldn't shake the sense of displacement that clung to him. He had heard of students struggling to make ends meet, but this was a reality he hadn't fully comprehended until it loomed over him like an impending storm. His first week of classes began amidst a flurry of activity, lectures, introductions, and the overwhelming realization of the mountain of knowledge that awaited him. Each day seemed to stretch longer than the last, as he immersed himself in the intricacies of medicine, his passion undeterred by the world outside. But as the sun set each evening, Tyson's determination would often collide with the harsh truth. His attempts to secure a place to rest his head brought him to an unfamiliar territory. The back seat of his car, the cold vinyl pressed against his skin, and the cramped space served as a reminder of the stark contrast between his dreams and his reality. The stars above twinkled with an indifferent brilliance, mocking his efforts to carve a place for himself in a world that seemed intent on pushing him away. In a desperate bid for reprieve, Tyson checked into a seedy motel one evening. The flickering fluorescent lights illuminated a room that bore the weight of countless transient occupants. As he lay on the musty bedspread, he realized that even the brief respite this place offered came at a cost, one that his already strained finances could ill afford. The weight of the situation pressed down on Tyson's shoulders, his thoughts a tempest of anxiety and uncertainty. He had heard whispers of other students grappling with the same challenges, but the isolation he felt was suffocating. The demands of his coursework left him little time to contemplate his circumstances during the day, but the nights when the world grew quiet were a canvas for his deepest fears. It was during one of those solitary nights, huddled in the dim light of his car, that Tyson's path intersected with Maya's. As he sat in the university's library, seeking refuge among the hushed pages, Maya's presence was like a beacon of understanding in the sea of solitude. Their conversation unfolded with a familiarity that belied their brief acquaintance, as Tyson found himself pouring out his struggles with the weight of his dreams. Maya listened with a quiet empathy, her eyes reflecting the empathy that Tyson had yearned for. And then, in a voice that carried a sense of shared secrets, she whispered about a hidden reality that existed beyond the imposing walls of their medical school, a world where a small group of students had banded together to create an encampment on the outskirts of the city. As Maya spoke, Tyson's heart quickened, his curiosity piqued by the notion of a community forged by shared challenges. She described how these students, bound by the relentless pursuit of their dreams, had found refuge within the makeshift tents and tarps that formed their shelter. The encampment was a place where they had pooled their resources and strength, where the darkness of their individual struggles was met with the light of collective resilience. Tyson's thoughts swirled with a mixture of skepticism and hope. The idea of sleeping on the streets was a terrifying prospect, yet the allure of a community that understood his journey was a siren song he couldn't ignore. He thanked Maya for her candor, their conversation etching a mark on his heart that would guide him toward an unconventional path, one that would challenge his comfort zones and reshape his perceptions of camaraderie. As the library's doors closed behind him that night, Tyson gazed at the cityscape beyond, each illuminated window a reminder of lives lived in a world that felt distant. With the encampment's existence as a hidden beacon, he felt a spark of hope rekindle within him. And in the days that followed, as he navigated the uncharted waters of medical school and the uncertainty of life, Tyson found himself drawn to the encampment like a moth to a flame, a beacon of unity in a world that had seemingly forgotten its duty to care. The relentless rhythm of Tyson's footsteps echoed through the deserted streets as he made his way back to his car that evening. The seedy motel's dimly lit sign cast an eerie glow that painted long shadows across the cracked pavement. The weight of his exhausted body seemed to match the heaviness of his thoughts, and the reality of his situation settled like a suffocating fog. The few nights he had spent in the motel had already stretched his credit beyond its limits, and the anxiety of accumulating debt gnawed at the edges of his mind. He unlocked the car door with a heavy heart, his fingers gripping the steering wheel as he sat in the driver's seat, his gaze fixed on the dashboard. A sense of isolation washed over him, an isolation that had not only separated him from the world, but from his own dreams. The inside of his car was a testament to his life's current state, a clutter of textbooks, notebooks, and the remnants of meals hastily consumed between classes. As Tyson adjusted the seat to an uncomfortable recline, he reflected on the chasm that had grown between his aspirations and his reality. He had once imagined himself mastering medical knowledge within the walls of prestigious institutions, not within the confines of a sedan's back seat. The darkness outside mirrored the bleakness within, and Tyson's thoughts were a swirling tempest of doubt. Could he truly continue on this path? Was the dream he had nurtured for so long destined to be overshadowed by the darkness that encroached from all sides? Morning found Tyson in the same position, his body stiff and his mind weary from the restless night. The prospect of facing another day of lectures and clinical training while shouldering the weight of his housing predicament felt like an insurmountable challenge. He gazed at the stethoscope hanging on the rearview mirror, a symbol of the aspirations he had nurtured since childhood. Yet, it now served as a reminder of the disparities that threatened to extinguish his passion. With a determined resolve, Tyson dragged himself out of the car and made his way to the university. The bustling hallways were a stark contrast to the solitude of his car, the faces of fellow students consumed by their own worries and ambitions. Tyson, however, was ensnared in the relentless cycle of uncertainty, his focus divided between the lectures that beckoned and the struggles that consumed him. Throughout the day, his thoughts frequently strayed to Maya's words about the encampment. The image of a community of students facing similar challenges resonated deeply with him. He wondered about the camaraderie they had formed, the collective strength that enabled them to weather the storms together. Tyson had always been a solitary person, preferring the quiet corners of libraries to crowded social scenes. But in the face of his current isolation, the idea of finding connection within the encampment grew more alluring. After his last class, Tyson's fingers tapped a restless rhythm against his desk as he debated his options. With a hesitant breath, he reached into his bag and pulled out his phone. His thumbs hovered over the keys for a moment before he typed a quick message to Maya.
Hey, it's Tyson. Can we talk?
Seconds felt like hours as he waited for a response. When his phone finally buzzed, his heart quickened.
Sure, meet me in the library in 20 minutes.
As he walked to the library, Tyson's steps carried a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. He found Maya seated at their usual spot, her eyes lifting from her book as he approached. Her smile was warm, and Tyson's nerves seemed to ease at her welcoming presence.
Hey Tyson, what's on your mind?
Maya's voice held a genuine curiosity. Tyson took a deep breath, his words spilling out in a rush.
I've been thinking about what you told me, the encampment. I'm considering it, Maya. It's just, I'm scared, you know?
Maya's gaze was steady, her empathy evident.
It's natural to feel that way. But remember, the encampment offers more than just shelter. It's a place where we share our dreams, our challenges, and our hopes. It's a community that understands what we're going through.
Tyson nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision. He appreciated Maya's honesty, and the glimpse she had offered into a world he had been hesitant to explore. As he left the library that day, the encampment was no longer just an abstract idea. It was a tangible haven that beckoned to him, offering the promise of connection and the possibility of a sanctuary amidst the chaos. The seedy motel's neon glow cast long shadows across the pavement once again as Tyson made his way there that night. He knew that the cost of staying there was pushing him further into financial turmoil, yet he had taken a step towards change. The encampment, with its promise of community and understanding, had ignited a spark within him, a spark of resilience that refused to be extinguished by the weight of circumstance. With a determined breath, Tyson vowed that he wouldn't let his dream wither in the face of adversity. The road ahead might be uncertain, and the challenges might be daunting, but the encampment's allure held the promise of a support system that he sorely needed. As he settled into the uncomfortable bed, the darkness outside was matched by the unwavering light within him, a light that would guide him towards the encampment's embrace, a beacon of unity in a world that had tested his mettle. The city's outskirts were a tapestry of fading lights as Tyson's footsteps carried him towards the encampment. His heart quickened with a mix of anticipation and apprehension, the silhouettes of tents and makeshift shelters coming into view. As he walked deeper into the encampment, he was met with the subdued murmur of voices and the flickering glow of lanterns. Maya had given him a vague description of where to find her, and as Tyson approached a cluster of tents, he spotted her familiar silhouette. She sat near a makeshift fire pit, her eyes catching his as he drew closer.
Tyson!
She greeted warmly, patting the ground beside her. Tyson settled down, the warmth of the fire offsetting the coolness of the night air.
Thanks for meeting me,
he said, his voice tinged with gratitude. Maya nodded, her gaze steady.
Of course. I know it's a big decision. I remember how it felt when I first joined.
Tyson leaned in, his curiosity piqued.
How did it feel for you?
A wistful smile curved Maya's lips.
It was scary, no doubt, but also liberating. In the city, we often feel isolated, disconnected. Here, we're all in this together. We share more than just a pursuit of medicine. We share the struggles that come with it.
What's it like living here?
He asked, his curiosity genuine. Maya's gaze swept over the encampment, a mix of nostalgia and fondness in her eyes.
It's challenging, no doubt, but it's also a testament to our resilience. Living in close proximity means we can share resources, watch out for each other. There's a sense of unity that you won't find anywhere else.
As Tyson listened, his heart felt lighter than it had in weeks. He had always valued his solitude, but the isolation he had experienced recently was different. It was suffocating. The idea of living in close proximity to others who understood his journey offered a sense of comfort he hadn't anticipated.
I want to be a healer,
he admitted.
But lately, it feels like the world is conspiring against that.
Maya's gaze held an unwavering certainty.
Living in the encampment doesn't mean giving up on your dreams. If anything, it's a testament to your determination. You're not alone in this struggle.
As the fire crackled beside them, Tyson felt a glimmer of hope that had eluded him for too long. Maya's words were a lifeline, a reminder that even amidst adversity, he could find support and understanding. The encampment was a tangible embodiment of the unity he craved, a community where aspirations were nurtured and dreams were safeguarded. As Tyson said his goodbyes for the night and rose to his feet, the encampment's glow seemed to brighten in his eyes. The path ahead was still uncertain, but the sense of unity he had discovered was a guiding light that had rekindled his passion. With each step he took towards the outskirts of the city, he carried with him the promise of a community that understood, supported, and believed in the transformative power of their shared dreams. The weeks that followed Tyson's conversation with Maya were a whirlwind of change and adaptation. With the encampment's allure planted firmly in his mind, Tyson faced a crossroads that demanded a decision, one that held the potential to redefine his journey. As he immersed himself in his studies, Tyson's thoughts often drifted to the encampment's promise of unity. The solitude of his car had left him feeling adrift, disconnected from the world he aspired to heal. The encampment, with its shared struggles and shared dreams, offered a lifeline to the connection he craved. One evening, as twilight cast long shadows across the city, Tyson found himself standing at the outskirts of the encampment. The makeshift tents and tarps painted a tapestry of resilience against the backdrop of a world in turmoil. With a hesitant breath, he stepped inside, the unfamiliar surroundings sparking a mix of trepidation and hope. Over the next few weeks, Tyson became a familiar face within the encampment. He contributed his knowledge to impromptu study sessions, shared meals around the communal fire, and discovered the richness of friendship forged in the crucible of adversity. The encampment wasn't just a shelter, it was a microcosm of unity, a place where aspirations were nurtured and bonds were forged. As the encampment thrived, its existence ignited a divisive discourse that rippled through the city. The media had caught wind of the students' unconventional living arrangements, and their coverage ranged from sympathetic to scathing. Tyson watched as news articles painted the encampment as either a beacon of resilience or a symbol of societal failure. Within the city, public opinion teetered on a knife's edge. Some admired the students' determination to pursue their dreams against all odds, their shared struggles resonating with the masses. But others were quick to dismiss them, branding the encampment as a blight on the city's image, a stark reminder of the government's negligence. Tensions mounted as advocates and critics faced off in heated debates. Advocacy groups, inspired by the encampment's unity, rallied behind the students' cause, demanding affordable housing initiatives and increased support for aspiring medical professionals. Conversely, detractors deemed the encampment a nuisance, its presence casting a shadow over the city's illusion of prosperity. Accusations of the students being a drain on resources or a potential threat to public safety fueled the flames of hostility. The encampment's very existence had become a catalyst for deeper societal issues to bubble to the surface. Tyson felt the weight of this mounting tension in every corner of the encampment. What had once been a haven of camaraderie now bore the scars of division. Friends who had shared dreams and stories now engaged in passionate debates that left wounds that took time to heal. The encampment's resilience was being tested not only by the challenges of their circumstances, but by the fracturing effects of public scrutiny. One evening, as Tyson huddled around the fire with a group of his fellow students, the conversation took an unexpected turn. The encampment's influence on the public sphere was undeniable, but the price they were paying for it was steep. Emily, a medical student known for her unwavering determination, voiced the concerns that had been simmering beneath the surface.
Our unity is our strength,
she said, her voice tinged with urgency.
But our division could be our downfall. The world is watching us, and we can't afford to let our differences overshadow our shared goals.
Her words resonated deeply with Tyson, who had witnessed the encampment's transformation from a sanctuary of solidarity to a battleground of ideologies. The realization that their unity was being eroded by external pressures weighed heavily on him. Tyson had always believed in the power of unity, but he now saw the challenges of maintaining it in the face of mounting adversity. In the days that followed, Tyson observed a growing resolve among the encampment's residents to bridge the gaps that had formed. Meetings were held, discussions were facilitated, and compromises were sought. It was a slow process, and tensions didn't dissipate overnight, but the spark of unity still glimmered beneath the surface. Without fail, the city had become a battleground of conflicting ideologies, each side digging trenches with fervent conviction. The encampment's presence, once a beacon of unity, had become a flashpoint for the societal divisions that had been simmering beneath the surface. News headlines became more sensationalized, and Tyson watched with a heavy heart as the encampment's story unfolded in stark black and white. Protests that had once been peaceful now teetered on the edge of violence. The city's residents, divided by their perspectives, clashed in the streets. Those who saw the encampment as a symbol of resilience and hope marched alongside those who deemed it a stain on the city's reputation. The air was thick with tension, and the encampment's residents felt the mounting pressure of an increasingly hostile environment. One evening, as Tyson sat by the fire, his gaze met Maya's. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a recognition that the encampment was facing its breaking point. Maya's voice was weary as she spoke, her words carrying the weight of their shared concerns.
The city's sentiment is shifting, Tyson. The encampment's very existence is being used as a political weapon.
Tyson nodded, his thoughts a tempest of emotions.
We've become the face of a much larger struggle, even if it's not entirely fair.
As the weeks wore on, the pressure on the encampment intensified. The city's residents demanded action from the government, calling for the encampment's dismantling. Threats of violence escalated, and the encampment's residents found themselves trapped in a cycle of fear and uncertainty. Tyson watched as the city's leaders grappled with the encampment's complexities, torn between addressing the issues it exposed and placating the demands of their constituents. The media frenzy painted a narrative that overshadowed the encampment's true essence, the resilience, unity, and shared dreams of the students who called it home. One fateful morning, as the sun rose over the city, the encampment's residents were met with a scene that seemed to epitomize the turmoil. Protesters had gathered in front of the encampment, their anger and frustration palpable. As Tyson emerged from his tent, he found himself at the center of a whirlwind of emotions: fear, anger, defiance. The city's response was swift and decisive. Police arrived in force, barricades were erected, and the encampment was issued an ultimatum. It had to be dismantled within a matter of days. The pressure of the city's residents and the specter of potential violence had forced the encampment's fate into the hands of those who had fought so hard to preserve it. As the encampment's residents came to terms with this sudden turn of events, Tyson felt a mixture of frustration and resignation. The encampment's unity, once their greatest strength, was now a target for those who sought to tear them apart. The shared dreams that had drawn them together were overshadowed by the tumultuous forces that now threatened to consume them. The day of the encampment's dismantling arrived with an air of somber inevitability. As the residents began packing their belongings, the encampment's makeshift homes transformed into empty spaces. Tyson stood amidst the chaos, a small bag slung over his shoulder, his schoolbooks clutched in his hands. Maya approached him, her expression a mirror of his own conflicted emotions.
Are you okay?
Tyson let out a deep sigh and nodded, his gaze fixed on the encampment's now desolate landscape. He didn't know what he expected from the world, but it certainly wasn't this.